Hi there, you're listening to Unnatural Selection, the show about newsy type stuff and things. My name is George.
My name is Tom.
My name is Adam.
And with our powers combined, we are Unnatural Selection. Make sure you visit us at our salubrious home on the web, unnaturalshow.com. Welcome to Unnatural Selection, a show about news and politics. I've gotten it out of the way right up top, so I don't forget to do it.
Right. Have you gotten complaints?
Yes,
Like
a number
wow.
of complaints.
Wow. All right.
Fired.
To be fair, we do just normally jump into some random esoteric thing like that is in no way related to news and politics.
Yeah.
So people logging on may feel like they've been misled. So I think it is good to clarify.
Yeah, I mean,
George.
that's fair, but it's called color, Adam. You just got to you can't just lead in with a boring news bulletin kind of thingy. Like, there's got to be something silly.
Yep. And now that you've asked for something silly, I can't think of anything.
No, as soon as you
say that,
as soon as I asked for something silly, it's like comedy just died.
I went to a few wineries today, and I'm like, that's not funny. That's just
hilarious.
That sounds nice.
Very
brilliant.
Nice, just an adult, nice adult time.
An adult thing. I went with my vest.
A lovely way. Yeah, you are wearing a vest. You are doing
Adam loves his vests. I never understood the vest. It's like just your core is cold, but your arms are not. I don't know.
It's cold.
My extremities can freeze off. I'm happy to get frostbite.
Just put a jacket on.
It's a South Bank look. This is I'm in South Bank and I work in finance. Is the look of the collared shirt, the vest. Is it a puffy vest or is it
puffer vest?
Yeah, it's a puffer vest. Are you wearing chinos and brown shoes?
No, I'm actually wearing shorts, and I was wearing boat shoes with it. Like I was going on some sort of.
This outfit makes no fucking sense whatsoever.
Yeah, I was gonna say I have zero business giving anyone fashion advice or critiquing fashion in any sense. I'm wearing track pants right now, and I don't understand fashion at all. Adam, that outfit's ridiculous.
I've got a puffy shirt. No. This makes perfect sense. Okay, I've got a puffy vest. I've got a collared shirt. I'm wearing shorts. I've got gloves on, and I'm in a bikini.
It's the boat look, right? Because you got the polo.
No.
Okay, and you got and the core stays warm with the pufferage vest. And it's a perfect chance. An example of this is if you look at the picture in the first article that we're going to talk about, you can see that Lachlan Murdoch, co-chairman and chief executive of Fox News, is also wearing a puffer vest, not with a collared shirt. He's just got like
the comparison that you want to invite is Lachlan Murdoch. That's what you're going for. Is the Murdoch?
We're here now, aren't we? So let's walk into this segue.
Well, Adam, I guess I'm more than happy to say, Lachlan, your outfit makes no sense. There, I said it. Come at me, bro.
Careful, Tom. So speaking of Lachlan Murdoch, yes, I mentioned it's a news and politics show. Top story, Lachlan Murdoch has had a court win in his defamation battle against online publisher Crikey. So this is something...
Wait a minute. You're telling me Lachlan Murdoch's quite litigious?
I can neither confirm nor deny the litigiousness of one Lachlan Murdoch, part of the Murdoch family and Fox Corporation. I have no suggestions one way or the other as to the litigiousness of said individual. Heretofore, above stated commentary is for comedic purposes. Please don't sue me.
In light of that, Lachlan, mate, I think the outfit's great. The puffer vest brings out your eyes.
It's great.
Perfect. It's lovely. Stunning.
So good.
So good. It's a real Adam Doreen look that you're inviting a comparison to, and that's we all strive for that.
I definitely set the trend. Let's put it that way.
You sure did.
Late last year, second half of last year, there was an article posted by Crikey which talked about the involvement of Fox News in creating the misinformation ecosystem that led, and the argument made by the article in Crikey was that, from their editor, I think it's Bernard Keane. The argument essentially was that Fox News, and this is the quote, were unindicted co-conspirators in the US Capitol riots. So drawing a direct line between the propaganda apparatus of Fox News and the outcomes of January 6th.
Yeah. And I think the article itself, even went one step further. It was the Murdoch family
is directly
specifically was what they were intimating towards. Yeah, and it was an interesting kind of situation because article was published, threats of suing or whatever were posed, and so they took the article offline. They're like, it's down. We're going to deal with the litigiousness of this and all the litigation stuff. And then a couple months later, they put it back up.
Yes, this is the key.
That's a big dick swing.
So
yeah, bold.
Mr. Murdoch's barrister Sue Chrysanthou, which is I think that's a Greek name, if ever I heard one. Ms. Chrysanthou alleged documents obtained in the course of the case, so during the discovery process, show that Crikey's bosses had contrived the proceedings in order to drum up financial support. So this was very evident. I mean, it does, far be it from me to agree with Lachlan Murdoch on just about anything, but it does seem to me that this was the case. It did seem like a coordinated campaign. Obviously, we had the article. They received a cease and desist from the Murdoch family. They took the article down. They've then reposted the article. So they took it down on the 30th of June, I think it was. And then it was republished on August 15th. So they've had a couple of weeks to sort of talk about internal strategy and how they're going to handle it. And they've said, basically, what we're going to do, it seems like the response was, well, let's use this to sort of drum up a David versus Goliath type scenario where we're under attack. And yeah, as soon as the article was republished, it seemed like a very coordinated campaign online, being like, Murdoch Media suing us again. Like, this is to defend against the Murdoch Media and subscribe and sign up or donate to our legal effort. And like, we're taking this to the Murdoch sort of thing. So it seemed like a very coordinated attempt to drum up additional revenue off the back of this piece of litigation that they figured was coming after they took the article down and put it back up. So, and then one of the quotes was, so Mr. Hayward, who's the CEO of
no, it's the lawyer. Oh no, sorry,
Chief Executive
I am reading
Will
a different
Hayward.
name. Yeah, of private media who owns Crikey.
Who owns Crikey. So the chief executive, Mr. Hayward, sent an email to his PR firm on August 8th. So this is before they've put it up again, saying, quote, "We do now feel it is unlikely that they are going to issue a writ. This concerns me." So it's like, so basically what he's saying is, I don't think they're going to sue us. And this plan is only going to work if they sue us, sort of thing. It's like, man, I can't believe we're not going to get a lawsuit. I'm really bummed out about that. I'm really concerned.
How did the prosecution get the email?
Well,
that's the thing.
Discovery. Like, this is the thing: is when you're in a piece of litigation with someone, and obviously the Murdochs have made the argument that that Mr. Hayward should be counted as one of the respondents in the case. You then get the opportunity to do discovery and say, okay, he's doing this for money, to deceive his audience would be their framing, and raise money off the back of this. And so as part of discovery, we would demand all of his correspondence for, the relevant period. And so obviously they've received that. A judge has allowed that, and they've gone through it. And sure enough, there's emails going back and forth where they're discussing strategy for the purposes of
delete the email, Hayward. Like,
that's not
really
how
easy.
emails work, buddy.
Delete the email.
As Hillary Clinton learned, deleting the email is not the way to go about this.
Yeah, A, recovery, and B, even if there's no recovery, it's there's chunks of emails missing.
It's weird that there's no emails for 3 months.
Yeah, weird. So
the idea is that they've now been added as respondents to the litigation, and that's sort of it obviously doesn't speak to whether the article was defamation or not, but it does complicate matters if the motivation for posting the article had a financial interest, and that's why you've done it, sort of thing. So, and I think there's probably a fairly compelling case there, unfortunately. I'm sorry to say.
Defendants have said, or the respondents the lawyers have said that they'd already decided to do this before they even knew about.
But it's really hard to prove state of mind, right? And the facts of the case don't look good for them. So
no, not great.
And they received about at least $500,000 from a fundraising campaign. So there's definitely money that's changed hands. That they can see
I mean, I was
the course of
tempted.
it.
I was tempted to donate to that campaign when I saw it come up. I was just like, yeah, don't love the Murdochs, and these guys are sticking it to them. Like, it seemed deliberate that they were going out of their way to get sued for defamation to take them on. But I was like, great.
The trial date that was set down for March was vacated, and the new date has been set for October 9 of this year.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, it's not an episode of The Good Wife where someone says, I'll see you in court, and they get a court date for tomorrow.
This is a much more
really speedy, really expedited trial system they've got here in Chicago. No wait times for anything.
This is a much more conventional, what would you call it, defamation case where they're actually suing a news media outlet as opposed to, someone on Twitter or something that's being sort of.
This is what defamation laws were made for. Like, if someone says something that lowers your esteem to the public in a publication that actually reaches people, that's what the instrument of defamation is to be used for. It's not meant to, go after Shane Barzy on Twitter with 60 followers. Like, that's not the purpose of that was not the spirit of the legislation. It's not, I mean, Twitter didn't exist when the defamation legislation was crafted, presumably, but it's much more in the spirit of what defamation law is supposed to be used for. But even though
doesn't mean it can't also be abused in that sense of I don't know whether or not the arguments that Bernard was raising are worth airing. Is sort of the other tricky part.
Whilst I wouldn't say Lachlan Murdoch personally is responsible for January 6th, it is clear that the Fox News propaganda apparatus
was instrumental.
Has a role to play in whipping people up. In relation to Donald Trump and January 6th and, the voter fraud lies that they've helped to publicize. And I don't think that any of that's really in dispute. I guess the added step that Bernard took was saying that the Murdoch family specifically was responsible for what happened on January 6th.
As we often say, words mean things, and the very specific words used, I guess, were quite inflammatory to that end. So I guess it'll be interesting to see where this goes.
Also an interesting thing because it's an Australian case, right? But they're basically if it's the truth argument Crikey are trying to defend, they then have to sort of get evidence from America and try and correlate the two events, like the the lead up to it, I guess, and the actual riot itself. So it's
partially it's the sort of the new defense is part of what they're wanting to sort of give a bit of a trial run in court and sort of see what precedent gets held up as a result of that. So it seems like it's a high risk strategy that Crikey's running here. It seems like it's not breaking in their favor, which is sad because I think Crikey does a lot of good in-depth work. Unfortunately, most of it's behind a paywall, but it's
journalists got to get paid, right?
Yeah, you got to get paid. I get it.
Speaking of getting paid,
speaking of huge risks,
Gautam Adani was up until recently, very recently, one of the world's richest men. We're talking fourth richest in the world.
Well, he's still pretty rich.
He's still pretty rich. He's slid down to number 10, George, but he's still
he's just less morbidly wealthy than he was before.
So he is an Indian businessman who has a company called Adani.
And some of you may recognize from the Stop Adani protests that that were going on for a number of years here in Australia, where it seemed like a bunch of politicians really wanted to put some mines in on behalf of the Adani Corporation, and it seemed like all of the people didn't really want those mines, and actually the financials on those mines didn't really make a lot of sense given the commodity prices and where they were and how much yield there was. But this Adani fellow seemed to be photographed a lot, shaking various politicians' hands. And so people were a little bit confused as to why this Adani project was still going ahead, even though it didn't really make any sense. Anyway, so we found
it still went ahead, by the way, as well.
Yeah. Oh, of course. Hands were shook.
Hands were shook.
Yes.
I was shook.
I was shook as a result of the decision.
Yeah. International company does. That's the ramifications to Australia. They were involved in mining, but they have investments everywhere, primarily in India, obviously. Now, there is a little firm in the US called Hindenburg Research.
Delightful. Can I just say, the idea that a company that's doing short selling and puts out reports on companies that they want to take down for the purposes of, improving their short positions by uncovering fraud and naming the company Hindenburg is just fucking chef's kiss. I love that. I love that so much.
Putting the cart before the horse as always, George. Yes, they are a firm which does that. That's their modus operandi. So they've obviously done a bunch of investigations. Now, well, you could argue, is the work of someone who of an organization that is deliberately, like, if they're publishing material deliberately designed to tank a company's share price,
right? They definitely have an interest in exposing Adani, and that is they've shorted the company, which means they've bet against its success. And if the share price goes down, they make a shitload of money. So obviously there is an incentive for them to make Adani look as bad as possible.
Yeah, you're not going to see the Hindenburg guys report doing great.
Yeah, just doing a report on Apple, and turns out everything's really chill there.
They're doing wonderful.
It's great.
Yeah, that's great, and we are thrilled.
And we're thrilled about it. We love it.
So they released a report, and it was a couple of 100 pages long, from what I understand, which basically flagged concerns about the high levels of debts, the fact they use tax havens. Assuming most major international corporations do a lot of this, but
some
a lot of questions around the dodgy financials. Which, a lot of this stuff, to be fair, was raised during when the Stop Adani protest was at its height. A lot of this stuff was raised as part of that, so it's not necessarily new information, but it's definitely highlighted it perhaps in a different context than just sort of an environmental one, right? Yeah. So as George said, the report was designed to tank the share price, and it did.
And boy, did it!
And boy, did
it! So as of right now, and this is, what are we today? The 5th
time of recording.
I'm recording 5th of February 2023. The 6-month share price is down. This is Adani Enterprises Limited is the company that Google has shown me. It says 43% over the last 6 months.
Yeah,
I click on 6 month date. So if I go 1 month, it's down 60%.
Ouch.
It's down 5 days, it's down 50%.
Jeez.
So
ouch.
It's tanked. Which is like the equivalent of billions and billions and billions and billions of dollars.
Yeah.
Just wiped out.
So I
obviously,
guess really
Adani during this, though, like they sort of must have twigged that this was coming out. So they were prepared, this is their response, a 413-page response was issued on Sunday.
Well, your response has to be longer than the Hindenburg report.
That's true. That's true.
Like, you got to have that.
You can't do a just bang out a one-pager as a multi-billion-dollar organization. I think it's all hands on deck for something like this, right?
Just a one-pager. You what, bro?
Fucking come at me, bro.
Adani himself, had to come out and do an interview where he was like, "We are financially very solvent. We're very secure."
I'm so solvent right now.
Look at his eyes. They were just like, "We're so good right now."
You know what's solvent and has 2 thumbs? Fucking this guy.
Yeah.
But turns out that did jack shit.
Yeah. Oh, really? That's so weird that the market wasn't moved by that stirring Aaron Sorkin-esque speech. So the Hindenburg's report also said 5 of 7 key listed Adani companies have reported current ratios, which is a measure of liquid assets minus near-term liabilities, of below 1, which it said suggested a, quote, heightened short-term liquidity risk. So what that means is if you've got a current ratio of below 1, that means you've got, your short-term liabilities is how much money you need to pay in the next 12 months, right? To NBA chat, here we go.
Ding,
this is how much money you owe in the next year. Okay, and this is how much liquid cash you have to pay off those short-term loans or short-term liabilities of any kind, right? Short-term debts, short-term expenses, whatever.
Fees, taxes.
Yeah, this is the money you owe for the next year. This is the money that you have for the next year. And if the money that you have, this is like real basic shit. If the money that you have for the next year is less than the money that you owe for the next year, you have a current ratio of below 1. Below 1, real bad.
Yeah.
Bad number to have.
You done fucked.
You done fucked up, okay? It's like very basic, like lemonade stand level fucking business economics is like you need to be getting more money in for the lemons that you're selling than you're paying for the lemons.
Yeah.
Very basic stuff.
So this is, some people have cracked the shits because they see it, because Adani is so big in India.
Yeah.
They see it as having, like, it could tank, like, this is like sort of an extrapolation, which could be, a bit of hyperbole, but it could tank the Indian economy partially, or have a real effect on the Indian economy, where, if the company in India isn't able to invest as much, isn't able to keep up with isn't able to employ as many people, or whatever the ramifications may be, that will have effect on people's lives and the economy in India.
Yeah. So I guess, really, like, we're talking about this not in the sense of like the big economic ramifications and all that sort of stuff. More just, eat shit, Adani, you bastards.
Yeah.
You can't blow up an indigenous cave to get out of this one, can you?
Was that that Santos?
No, that was
I thought it was Adani, wasn't it?
No, it wasn't Adani. That was BHP.
I'm pretty sure they
Rio
blew one
Tinto,
up.
or one of those ones.
Oh, it was Rio Tinto, you're right.
Rio
Adani. Oh, I'm so sorry that it wasn't you that blew up that site, but really, you're just trying to ruin everywhere else. You want to blow up the Great Barrier Reef, I'm pretty sure, so...
that was the thing for when Stop Adani was in. One of the big arguments was, well, how are you going to manage the environmental costs? One of them was, at the time, coral bleaching and the reef was pretty bad. That was part of it in terms of, where are some of these, waste from the mine, where's that going to go? What's it going to do for, carbon emissions, generally speaking, if you're shipping the coal off to India? The big thing that got me was that they were promising, and this is probably lines up partly with what, the Hindenburg report says, is they were over-promising shit. They were like, there's going to be fucking millions of jobs in northern Queensland. The rail line's going to be we're going to have a big fucking railway line. It's going to, but like...
So what you're saying is the Adani Corporation was the equivalent of the dude down at the pub that's trying to tell you how big the fish he caught was?
Literally.
It was this fucking big. It was huge.
It's going to be this big, like, I'm going to catch a fish this big, and everyone's like, yeah, sure, Tim. But meanwhile, the government at that time was like, no, I believe you. Yeah, great, catch the fish, off you go. And
here's subsidies from the government to go and catch the fish.
Yeah. Here's a government subsidy, and that was the thing, is that, like, the government was handing, just like wiping the floor, like, oh, you can have whatever you want, like all this economic benefit. The economic benefit, they've measured it since the mine's opened. It's not there. So there's like a couple hundred jobs.
This is one of the things that I do like about interest rates, is that it definitely, like, higher interest rates.
Sorry, I don't know. Did we just lose like half the audience with that sentence?
No, wait, come back.
This is the thing I really love about interest rates. It's just in everyone's head.
Lost him, Tim. He's flatlined.
No, he's gone.
No, don't die on me, you bastard.
Like, no, come back. I swear it'll be interesting.
So here's the good thing about interest rates, and interest rates being higher, is that it does sort a lot of the wheat from the chaff in global finance, right? If you've got higher interest rates and your interest repayments are higher, and the debt that you have is more expensive, it really does, it does force you to, the projects that you then have to invest in need to actually have like a sensible rate of return, right? This is why and you're going to see a lot more stories like this as these high interest rates continue to get a bit higher, as it seems like they're going to, and persist over the next year, is you're going to have a bunch of scam artists and bullshit artists go fucking bankrupt, Because when you've got cheap, the Lords of Easy Money book talked a lot about this. It's like when you got this dumb, they call it dumb money, floating around, where it's like money's so cheap. It's like you got a 2% return on your mortgage or your interest that you need to pay back is like 2%. Okay, well that money is basically free. So you can throw it into any dumb fucking project, even if the returns are pretty low, because anything's better than a 2% return. Right. So lots of mining projects got funded, lots of like natural gas extraction projects in the United States, oil extraction that didn't make sense. The rate of return was not low. And it turns out same thing as like, it seems like is happening here with Adani is they were juicing the numbers, right? To go, oh, it's a pretty good rate of return. We've done some funny accounting. And it's like, actually, it's more than 3%. It's going to be like 6 or 7% return. But in actuality, it's probably like a 3% return. And that still works in a 2% interest rate environment. Like you're still making some money. It's more than 2%. I guess everyone's happy. But if the interest rate's 5%, like it is now, all of those businesses don't make sense anymore. And the whole house of cards, like bullshit apparatus comes tumbling down because all of a sudden, the crypto markets, all of these big frothy industries that were just like pumped in full of this dumb cash.
Leveraged, yeah.
All of a sudden don't make any sense and they start collapsing. So that's where you see, like this is how the Bernie Madoff scheme came tumbling down as it was during the financial crisis. Everything's going through the floor. People want to pull their money out. All of a sudden, the Ponzi scheme, where people are putting more money in than is coming out, all of a sudden that collapses. It doesn't make sense anymore. So it's during these times of like heightened, economic distress that a lot of the men get separated from the boys. And I think that's what's happening here is that a lot, and so you're seeing it with Adani, but I think you'll also see it with a lot of, you're seeing it with sort of tech companies as well. There's been massive layoffs in tech over the last month.
Laid more people off recently, I think.
Amazon, ditched 12,000 people. Facebook has, thousands. Just been a mass. Twitter's ditched thousands. That's more.
Yeah, great.
It was self-inflicted, to be fair.
More just Elon Musk, but
that's a great way to help like your industry and everything is make sure that there's a shit ton of people now who are looking for work.
Yeah.
Great. Good one, tech companies. Maybe don't pay your executives a couple of mil extra.
Well, Microsoft and Google, and they're all doing this. And the thing is, it's like you look at the balance sheet of Microsoft. Microsoft's doing just fine. Like it's not like it's out of economic necessity. Like if we don't cut these jobs, we're gonna, we won't be profitable. Bullshit. It's just like, it seems like all of that frothy easy money we overhired. And other people are firing people, so we can fire people too. And we don't really need them, so fuck them.
Woo!
It's like we needed you then, so we hired all these people in. Actually, it seems like we don't need you as much anymore. Go fuck yourself. And then 3 months from now, when they need you again, they go, hey, we're going to hiring blitz. How's it going?
Yeah.
Welcome to Microsoft. It's a family culture.
Fucking bullshit. Just
anyway,
consultants who helped come up with the report recommending that they fire a bunch of people got paid very well out of it.
I'm sure they did.
George Clooney in what was that film? What was that film where he was the management consultant who fires everyone?
No.
Flying High?
No, Flying High is the fantastic comedy.
Anyway, whatever that George Clooney film was.
I am serious and don't call me Shirley.
If you know what the film is, please at us and tell us.
Yeah. Up in the Air.
Up in the Air. Flying High? Yeah, you were pretty close. All right. I'll pay that.
Conceptually, I was around. I was in the genre. Yeah, so George Clooney in Up in the Air is very happy because it's firing time.
Oh, yeah. So
should have been fired.
Anyway,
speaking of being very happy.
I wish Adani the worst. See you later. Yeah. You piece of shit.
Yeah. Other people I also wish the worst on. Literally anyone involved in the Robodebt scheme and orchestrating it. Because, oh boy, the Royal Commission into this keeps getting better and better and better in terms of the juicy morsels of the outright evil that was enacted in that policy.
As the Italian, may I step in here and give you cultural cover to say it's one spicier meatball?
Yes, definitely. Oh God, where to start? Do we want to start with the fact that the government doxed poor people?
Yeah, that's what it sounds like.
or that that the fucking minister responsible didn't think it was his job to care whether or not it was legal.
I do what is necessary.
And then let's check the legality of it afterwards.
All right.
Exactly
Sick.
what they did. Let's do that.
Yeah, sick, brilliant. So
legislate first and ask questions later.
So one of the people who presented to the Royal Commission in the past week was Rachel Miller, who, when Alan Tudge was
Rochelle.
Rochelle? Oh, sorry, Rochelle, you're right. I misread it. Pardon me. Sorry, Rochelle, but also you're a bit complicit in this, so I don't care that much. Rochelle Miller, who was the senior media advisor at the time for the Department of Human Services, it was Human Services, wasn't it? Yes, that the Minister Alan Tudge was in charge of at the time.
Yeah, with
a little bit of
the
context.
man with whom she was having sex at the time as well.
Yeah, a bit of context.
Back up.
Rochelle is the woman who that Four Corners report around like affairs in saying that she was having an affair with Alan Tudge and they saw Christian Porter in a pub.
Yeah.
Or like that. That's
that was one thing. I didn't know this was the same person.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, it was Alan Tudge in his department and she was the media advisor. So what I'm worried is that everyone's going to be like, of course she'll say all this shit in the Royal Commission. She has an axe to grind with Alan Tudge.
Yes,
but
she does, but
I'm sure she does.
In all fairness, it's the truth.
Yeah, but also what she's admitting to here is also fucking horrific.
Yeah.
So, well done. Anyway, so Rachel Miller, media advisor to Alan Tudge, spoke to the Royal Commission to talk about how they were trying to handle the crazy fallout from the Robodebt scheme. And there's a lot to unpack here, but I think the biggest one that we need to talk about is that one of their strategies was how about all this data that we have from all the people receiving welfare from Centrelink, that we're trying to claw all this money back from, law be damned. We have all this data of everyone's Centrelink transaction history. So while they're admitted, as they admit, what they called the left-wing media was giving them a huge beat up, they were like, well, we need to fix this situation. Let's change the narrative. Let's go to our buddies in the right-wing media and hand them... Yeah, let's the people who might be more friendly to our fucking evil shit cunt ways have just decided let's hand
Tom,
them.
are you editorializing?
Oh, am I editorializing? I don't know, George. But yeah, let's hand the friendly right-wing media just a bunch of Centrelink records for people that we believe were rorting the system.
Yes.
For individuals to be like, so if the left-wing media is saying, hey, this is unlawful, because it is, they're saying, oh, this is all unlawful and unethical and terrible. What if we hand the right-wing media examples of people who may have been actually rorting the welfare system?
Yeah, let's cherry pick some examples to hit him back
with. Look at these poor people fucking over the system. Labour would have let these people escape. Yeah. And so that's exactly what they did. So Jesus Christ, the government doxed people intentionally. Let that sink in for a minute and how fucked that is.
Yeah, so don't so this is why I'm always very dubious of these, like, yes, MyGov and all these systems are useful for connecting up all your various government services, your tax record and your help debt and all these sorts of things. But, if anyone ever criticizes you of being skeptical of these digitized services that are run by the government, just show them this. Just point them to the part where the government took individuals and basically publicized their personal financial details to the media in order to use them as political pawns in a narrative war with the other side of politics. Like that is a thing that is not a conspiracy theory. There's no tinfoil hat. Who really shot JFK? To fucking, which one of the Kennedys do they think is coming back? The QAnon people, this isn't a conspiracy theory. This is a thing that happened. The government gave away people's personal details to be attacked in the media with. Like, that is a thing that happened.
It was the fact that as what Ms.
Media
Miller,
outlets actually published those details in the end.
I don't remember.
I don't know if it's actually being
but
clarified
it's like
on that.
completely irrelevant if the media exercised discretion or not. That's completely besides the point. It's just because the guy that you hand a loaded. This is the we're getting into the discussion of Alec Baldwin and the gun and the misfiring. But just, Jesus. If you hand someone a loaded gun that they don't think is loaded, like whether they choose to fire it or not, you've done a bad thing by handing them a loaded gun. I'm mixing my metaphors here, but you understand what I'm saying.
Yeah, and the fact that this announced. Sorry, Adam. No, you go ahead. You haven't said anything yet. Before I was just going to say
that it's a good example of how yes men in the the department space, the public service, the yes men that are put in at the start of a political term are quite happy to compromise any values or to go whatever lengths they have to do to be able
what is necessary
to achieve the outcome, because the Prime Minister's not happy about it. And this is the quote from Ms. Miller. That the Prime Minister, Malcolm Turnbull, was unhappy with the escalating media issue around the Robodebt, and we were trying to contain it. And then the next thing in this article that's been said is that I developed a crisis media strategy at the request of the minister being Alan Tudge. So Prime Minister goes, I don't want to have this in my headline because, at that point, bloody Turnbull was trying to flog off a bunch of other stuff that he was like the neg and other things, I'm imagining. So he says to Tudge, it's too much noise, get rid of the story. Yeah. Tudge, I am your faithful servant. I will get rid of the noise. He goes,
Turnbull.
Yeah, I am Beowulf and I will kill your monster.
I'm Beowulf and I will kill your story.
Goes to his media advisor and goes, kill the story. And then the media advisor goes, doesn't question it. Yeah, sure, this is a great strategy. Would you like to do this strategy? And Tudge presumably went, yeah, sure, great, no worries.
Yeah, sure, why not? And it was the fact that they said it, like, not only that in the strategy, that's what shits me here. I know this is a big case of news that we've talked about before, because this is like, anyone who doesn't think this is the case is in fucking denial. But to hear them just outright say it makes me sick to my stomach. That the strategy was like, we need to look like we are cracking down on welfare cheats, quote unquote, because that plays well in certain marginal districts. So let's leak it to the right-wing media rather than the left-wing, because that's how that's spread. And it's so fucking irritating that is how the media, A, is, and B, can be viewed.
I guess, should we be surprised? Because this is what we talk about every week on the show. It's like, it's weird that all of the Murdoch papers seem like they're taking the same marching orders and talking the same line of bullshit. Like Peter Dutton getting angry about the fucking $5 note or whatever. Fucking, we don't have enough fucking information about the voice to Parliament. It's like everyone's talking the same line. It's weird how they all seem to line up like that. This is what we know to be true, but it is interesting hearing it,
to hear them say it in meetings.
Yeah.
Like,
to hear people say
meetings,
we were absolutely taking advantage of the, the bifurcated media environment to push our disturbed narratives. Like, of course that's what we were doing.
It's one thing for us all to know. It's another thing for them to sort of essentially say that, in that meeting we had about the strategy, to say, we all know the Herald Sun's our fucking mouthpiece, right? So hand them this info. Like, it's so... And it doesn't have to be this way, and it makes me so angry.
Yeah, it is really saying the quiet part out loud, for sure.
Saying the quiet part so fucking
interesting
loud.
Quote here as well is that she says that the minister was really, really very forceful about obtaining these case studies. He was very adamant with me that I needed to hunt as many studies as I could.
And this lines up with
just an amble over the touch.
And this lines up with other reports that we've talked about on the show before about what Tudge was doing at this time, from a undisclosed source. I don't want to
aside from cheating on his wife.
Well, no, about what he was saying about like, what's Labor doing? How would Labor respond? Like that was the concern internally at the time. Like this all lines up with that. Like, so I'm inclined to 100%. Believe there's like, yes, Rochelle has an axe to grind, but also like, I kind of believe her more because it's like, well, she's like ready to tell all the truths that she has because of the alleged relationship with Alan Tudge. So
just because she might hate the guy now doesn't mean she's not telling the truth. Not telling the truth, right?
And it lines up with everything else that we've heard and know about. So like, I don't think I'm inclined to believe her account of it.
100%. And it was twofold, the strategy as well, because it's one thing to be like, let's try and make Labor look bad in like, let's leak out some welfare cheats, as they call them. And so then we can be like, look, if us doing this strategy means these people are caught, whilst Labor wouldn't have done this, so they would have let them keep getting away with it. There's that strategy. But the other part of it was to try and, again, intimidate poor people.
Yeah.
From speaking out about their Robodebt
Yeah, it was to chill them. That's of course.
Yeah,
just
to frighten them. Yeah. It's Linda Reynolds and defamation all over again. It's like, this is a strategy to tell you to shut the fuck up. And
turns out, speaking truth to power, power doesn't love it when you do that. So
power fucking hates it when
Power's
you do that.
Not thrilled when you start speaking truth to it. So
interesting that, like, as well, when you contextualize a lot of the stuff when the Labor government first took power, and they were saying that like a lot of these departments were just hollow shells, basically, in terms of the staff that were there. Whether that's maybe that's politics as well. Them sort of trying to sort of buy themselves some more time. But you look at sort of the information space and the way a lot of this is working. Like whether it be this or other cases that have come up recently about the former coalition government, you just think, well, the people that they've put there, like everyone's just sort of going, yeah, okay, well, we'll do what the minister wants, we'll do what the government wants.
They're all just factotums. They're all just do. Yeah. Everyone's. It seems like, obviously, we were just following orders is not a good enough excuse. It wasn't a good enough excuse in the Nuremberg trials. It's not a good enough excuse when it comes to Robodebt. You can't just every single person down the line going, I was just doing what I was told. I didn't realize I was supposed to think about it and exercise any modicum of human empathy. I'm just a factotum. I'm just a factory piece in the human, in the factory line of misery being generated by this government. I'm just Lucille Ball on the factory line eating chocolates and fucking misery at high speed. What was I supposed to do as the person responsible for this game?
Which is an interesting segue, perhaps, to the next article, which is Alan Tudge's.
Yes.
Well, yeah. Can I just bring up one last thing from Ms. Miller's testimony?
I'll allow it, but watch yourself, McCoy.
And watch yourself, counsellor. This better be going somewhere. I just thought the little story that then she dropped during her testimony, which was that one of a staffer in someone else's office spoke to her for help because they themselves received a debt notice from the Robodebt system.
Oh, so someone within government. Yeah.
Someone within government, like a young referred to as a young staffer, spoke to Ms. Miller because they received a Robodebt notice from their days as when they were a student. And Ms. Miller said, quote, that, them coming to talk, alarmed me a little bit because I thought if a ministerial advisor has only been able to work out her debt from having kept very accurate records, I did start to wonder how the bulk of people who received welfare payments were going to manage that.
Yeah, no shit.
And then Ms. Miller referred the staffer's matter on to Mr. Tudge's office, and her debt was wiped once she replaced once she submitted pay slips. Like, that's a similar thing that happened to me, right? But then when Ms. Miller raised the matter with Mr. Tudge, his response was, that's exactly how the system is supposed to be working.
It's the system working. It's the system working as intended, is making people pull pay slips from 6 years ago in order to prove their innocence, putting the burden of proof back on the individual. That's the system working just as intended.
Yep. Just as intended.
And I love that the commentary around all of this is like, it's the automation. That was the thing that was fucked about the program. Like, it was just the automation. It was the automated debt notices. It wasn't the fact that the government was using predatory methods to claw back money from those who could least afford it. That's not the problem. We all agree that that's great. The problem was the emails were automated. And it's like, no. There was no human involved in the process of excising this misery on the populace. No. You really want to make sure that when you excise, when you're exacting misery on the people who are least fortunate in society, who can least afford it, who can least have, pool the resources to be able to fight back against it. What you want to make sure you do is include a human in the process. That's the lesson that we've learned.
You want to be able to see the light leading their eyes.
Artisanal, handcrafted misery, not this processed shit made by a machine. You want to see the life drain out of their eyes. Otherwise, what's the point? I can't come if that doesn't happen.
Give me a misery digger station or give me death.
10 courses, pebbled wines.
And then jumping over, so Alan Tudge believed this was the system working as intended. So I guess part of that system wasn't ensuring that it was legal, according to him. Because in his testimony to the Robodebt
you know
Royal
how
Commission,
FDR had that the thing on his desk that says the buck stops here.
Yeah.
I can just imagine Alan Tudge, the little thing on his desk saying the buck stops anywhere but here.
Yeah,
the buck stops somewhere else.
Yeah, the buck is somewhere else, and
I know where the buck is. I haven't heard about the buck. I don't know.
You're telling me where the buck is. La 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 la.
I don't know where the buck is. I'm not responsible for the buck. So the buck was generated by someone else, and I've just inherited the buck.
Yeah,
it's a long.
What's a buck? Never heard of it.
It's a long plaque to have on your desk.
Yeah,
he said that he was not responsible for his department's failure to ensure Robodebt was lawful.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So you're the minister for the department.
You're the minister for the department. I mean, I know it's not your job to maybe specifically be reading the fucking legislation and going through it, and it's someone else in the department's job to do that. But you should probably make, like, I think just general life advice, just anywhere, is to ensure maybe what you're doing's legal.
Yeah.
Like, yes, there are spur of the moment sort of things.
Forget ethical.
Forget ethical.
Forget ethical.
Another question. Don't ethical.
A completely different question. It's like, you're undertaking this carousel of misery and be like, are we the baddies? Like, that thought that just like never occurs to you at any point. That's fine. That ethics aside, which is something we can say a lot about our the stories we talk about in political journalism. Ethics aside, is the thing that I'm doing strictly legal? Might this be an Enron type situation in which I might end up holding the bag? That's a question that if I were a government minister, I would like to have an answer to.
Yeah. So, I disagree with you, Tudgy boy. Like, no, I think it was your job to make sure that it was legal, or at least your job to ask someone who could tell you whether it was legal
you have staff.
or not.
This is what the staff are for. The fact is, they knew it wasn't legal, or at the very least suspected. Even if they didn't know, they should have known that it wasn't legal, and they did it anyway because it was part of an ideological crusade, because they don't give a fuck about poor people, because it was politically advantageous to shit on them for themselves. There's no mystery here. We found the glass onion. With Scooby-Doo solved the mystery. Turns out it was exactly who we thought it was the entire time. It was Alan Tudge in the conservatory with a candlestick.
So he has said that legality had not crossed my mind until I read about it in a newspaper, I think, following the federal court case. The federal court case he's referring to was in 2019, which is a couple of years after it was publicly reported. Which is 2016, 2017? And so the reason why he didn't think about it, apparently, is because it was
It's your portfolio. If your portfolio turns up in the news, I'd have a fucking Google alert for George Tsipos corrupt, ?
It was unfathomable that a secretary in his department would not raise legal issues with him.
Couldn't fathom it.
I couldn't possibly fathom. News, George. No news is good news.
When I was having sex with my mistress, who was also my PR person, couldn't possibly fathom it. No, I wasn't fathoming it then. I wasn't fathoming it when she was kicking my leg under the table, going, "Honey, I know we're having an affair, but Christian Porter over there is doing some really fucked up still." Like, didn't fathom it then.
He's having a really open affair over there.
Yeah. That's crazy. Didn't fathom it then. Didn't fathom it when the newspaper reports came out. He's fathomed it now for the first time as he's walked into the fucking deposition. This is the first time he's fucking fathomed it.
Another question that he was asked. He said that he was aware that income averaging had the potential to inaccurately represent the income of welfare recipients in 2017. So he knew the system was potentially broken.
Ensure that you aren't doing that. Like, if it has the potential to do it, make sure it's not doing it. How is this helping? How does he think this is helping him?
The system, by the way, continued to operate until 2019.
Yeah. Probably until he read a newspaper and went, oh, fuck.
Oh, look.
Crap, I forgot the law.
Turns out I've been subpoenaed and I have to turn up to fucking court tomorrow to talk about this. It's the first time I've fathomed this.
And then again, fathoming and just thinking about his own actions in context of other thought is not something that I really give Alan Tudge any credit for, given his speeches being like the sanctity of marriage must be protected so the gays can't be happy while he's having an affair on his wife.
Mistress. Yeah.
So, fuck him is all I can say. Go fuck yourself, Alan Tudge.
The person sort of asking the questions has said that, or suggested that it would have been a simple thing to ask for advice.
Yeah.
As it were.
Yeah, it would have been.
To which Mr. Tudge responded, this was a program which had been through a cabinet process and ... A cabinet process is a rigorous process which always has a legal overlay through it. The next sentence here is, so the Department of Social Services lawyers would have to would have had to have formed a view that it was lawful. The Attorney General's Department has to form a view in relation to the legalities of this initiative. So basically what he's saying is, if it had come to me, it just would have had to have, like, there's no way.
By the time it arrives on my desk, so I assume someone else has checked.
I'm saying when the Minister for Health and Human Services does it, it's not illegal.
Aside from the fact that I've employed a bunch of yes men and one of them I'm having sex with, it's just like...
Can't believe my yes man didn't tell me the truth.
Possible way that any of these things could potentially backfire on me.
It's absolutely absurd.
I think he needs to be fired into the sun. Like, what else can we do with Alan Tudge? I honestly, how is he still a fucking member for parliament? I don't understand. This is like fucking Iran-Contra level shit, you know what I mean? It's like obviously doing illegal shit, covering it up. Like, I don't. How?
Here's the next bit. They tried to catch him out on what he just said. So they said to him that apparently there was a conference in 2017, the National Law Conference, which was attended by several officials from the departments of DHS, including the Secretary and Chief Counsel. And then there was an eminent silk, Peter Hanks, KC, who criticised
what's
the
an eminent silk? Sorry.
Lawyer,
so a silk is like a QC basically, or a KC. King's Counsel.
King's Counsel.
So silk is an equivalent to KC.
It's based on the silk.
Word?
I think it's because of the wigs that they have on their heads. They're silks.
So you get called a silk if you're a KC. But the silk is important for the response. So because they refer to them as silk. So he, at that conference, criticised the Commonwealth's method of raising and recovering debts in a keynote speech. So he gets up there, he makes a speech at the National Law Conference saying this is fucked up. And then the person asking the questions, Mr. Tudge, then says, well, what do you expect the Secretary and Chief Counsel to do after hearing that? And then Mr. Tudge says, it was my expectation that they would inevitably contemplate what the legal advice was that was given and reassure themselves that what they were doing was still lawful. And then Mr. Tudge said he did not know who Mr. Hanks was. He goes, I don't know this silk. Then they had an argument about, like, this guy wrote the textbook. Turns out this guy wrote the textbook on constitutional law, which has been used at universities for like decades. The commissioner, Catherine Owens, interjected. She goes, you didn't study Hanks? The guy who wrote, you said the speech, you didn't study Hanks' constitutional law?
It's literally like, to give you an impression of how prominent this guy is in the legal field, it's like graduating from acting school and someone saying, I never heard of Stanislavski. And it's like, but he's kind of the guy. Yeah. He's kind of the one fucking guy. If you know method acting, then you're talking about status. It's just like strains all credibility that he hasn't heard of this guy who's like so prominent that he's giving the keynote speech at this law. Like it's so insane.
Think about that. That he wouldn't have. It wouldn't have crossed his mind.
I don't know.
He's going, I wouldn't have
guy.
crossed my mind, but it should have crossed their minds.
I don't know this guy. I defer to the sharp legal minds in the coalition cabinet.
I love just this other little bit as well before we wrap up. Us just taking a steaming dump on Alan Tudge, which never gets old, by the way. Was when the question was put to Tudge whether or not it was a failure of the secretary or the chief counsel, not to take any, steps to raise whether that this was unlawful or not, given it was, quote, a failure for which you are responsible as minister.
Yes, this is the whole system. The Westminster system means you're responsible for what happens under your watch. You may not be.
And Alan Tudge replied, George, when you get on the rant, replied, I don't know that you can say that. To which they asked, but you understand the concept of ministerial responsibility. And he said, in the broad scheme, yes. But to say, the way that you put it, that I was responsible, I don't think is right. To which Mr. Gregory, who's asking the question, continued, surely that falls under the broad umbrella of ministerial responsibility, where when there is a shortcoming in the department, the minister is ultimately responsible for it. And Mr. Tudge replied, I accept and understand deeply the Westminster concept of ministerial responsibility. I don't accept the proposition that I was responsible for an individual not making a choice to not raise a matter, which is a double negative that totally fucks that sentence. So I don't know. That's what's quoted here in the article, but whether or not maybe they fucked up or he said this, but
No,
I don't accept the proposition that I was responsible for an individual not making a choice to not raise a matter.
He's saying
negative, actually.
He's actually got it wrong. But the point is what he's saying is I'm not responsible.
Yeah.
If someone doesn't bring it up to me, right?
Yeah.
Which is horseshit, because
I was responsible.
This is the whole point of the Westminster system, is that even it is not even necessarily a question of whether you were aware of the thing. It's whether you should have been aware. It's like a strict liability crime. It's not about whether you knew, it's about whether you should have known. And as someone who's the minister who is in charge of that portfolio, you should have known. So
in fact, it does stop with the minister,
yes,
as it turns out.
And that's the whole point of the Westminster system, is that the minister is at the top making the decisions which the civil service beneath them are then executing for them.
Yeah.
But the whole point is the minister is the one who's held accountable, and they can be voted out by the voters if they don't like what they're doing. That's the whole premise of the system, is that the minister is the one who's responsible for what happens in their department. And whether that's fair or not, I guess, is up for some debate. But that's the whole idea of the representative democracy that we have. And he's coming at us with some like Bill Clinton, I guess it depends what the definition of is kind of fucking response.
Yeah.
Alan Tudge just makes me want to shoot myself into the sun, honestly.
What did he say?
I just love the last part, like the next quote after that, as saying, it was not, I don't accept the proposition that I was responsible for an individual not making a choice to not raise a matter. I was responsible for the implementation of the scheme, which I will remind you was unlawful, Alan. So if you're responsible for the implementation, you are responsible for the fact that it was not legal.
I wonder if Malcolm Turnbull will get held in front of this.
Oh, God, I hope so.
Hope so.
Oh, messy bitch Malcolm coming in. Oh, that'd be great. Because, he clearly knew that this was being a shit fire.
Was a shit show,
talk about ministerial responsibility. Does it go all the way up to him then? Is a prime minister, as leader of the party, responsible for, does the buck of your cabinet stop at your prime minister?
You'd assume so.
You'd assume so.
Using Alan Tudge's logic, no one is ever responsible for anything.
Anything.
Anything. The concept of responsibility doesn't exist.
Then the secretary could just be like, the secretary of the department could always just be like,
the
guy who was the head of the branch didn't tell me that I was meant that it was illegal. And then the guy who's the head of the branch at legal would be like, well, the guys I employed in the third office on the right, they didn't tell me. They didn't
tell me that it was and then the guys in the lawyers go, well, we didn't come into contact specifically with that thing, so it wasn't my responsibility to tell anyone that it was. I only saw my compartmentalized. It's literally just the Spider-Man, the gif of Spider-Man pointing at two other Spider-Mans, and they're all pointing at each other. This is how accountability works under an LNP government, apparently.
Good. Makes you feel good on the inside.
Feels good, man.
Feels great, and it's awesome to see them just absolutely just shit themselves in front of a royal commission. It's a lot of fun.
That's good. That's how tax dollars at work.
Oh yeah. I'm more than happy to throw more tax dollars at seeing
this is what I want.
Squirm.
This is what I want for my money. Yeah. I don't want a $100 billion submarine program. I want every fucking government minister that we've ever talked about.
Yeah, I want $100 billion Alan Tudge shitting himself program.
I want a permanent program of just various ministers I've seen on TV over the last 10 years hauled in front of a fucking ICAC or the NAC or whatever it's called and forced to fucking be deposed and shit themselves. Get David Spears in to do the interviews instead of a QC.
The day that happens, clear my schedule. It'll just, wonderful.
We're running short of time now, so we'll push on if we can.
Adam, we're in charge of the show. We go as long as we want.
Do what I fucking want. We can do Joe Rogan, do 3 hours. Fuck it. We'll do it live.
Yeah, fuck it.
Smoke marijuana while we're with Elon Musk while we're doing a podcast about. God, I don't know what they were talking about.
I could think of nothing worse than smoking.
Could you imagine smoking weed with Elon Musk? It'd just be insufferable. God, my mind. You don't want to be in my mind. It's so hard in my mind.
Yeah, no, I don't. I don't want to be in your mind.
I don't want to be in your mind, and I don't want to be in your presence, you stinky, weird, sweaty man.
But do you want to be on the $5 note?
Sure.
That's the question, because up until now, one of the sides of our $5 note was one of the features was our late queen.
Yes.
Queen
El Quino.
Turns out I, as a regular Australian citizen, have a higher chance of appearing on the $5 note than King Charles. So that's fun.
That is fun.
Yep. Again, burying putting the cart before the horse.
So I'm telling the story. This is the story. You want the story now? I told you the story.
You got to lead it out. You got to drip it out a bit more.
I don't drip nothing.
Anyway. Also, this was the thing. Like when Queen Elizabeth II died last year, there a lot of places did talk about the Queen's on Australian money. So what does this mean? Are we just going to suddenly have King Charles on all our money? And how long would that take? And all this sort of stuff. There was some kind of tradition about the direction they're facing. They have to alternate.
They switch directions
back and forth, all this sort of shit. Whatever. But everyone was like, we're going to see $5 notes with King Charles on them. Apparently, no. The Reserve Bank of Australia has said, no, no King Charles. We're not going to put King Charles. Instead, they are going to canvass first Indigenous Australian groups. They're going to talk to Aboriginal representatives. I'm not sure of the actual details of who they're going to consult and all that sort of stuff, but they want to put something on there that is more representative of our First Nations people rather than the monarch, which, cool, great. I think that's awesome.
So to create a new design that honours the culture and history of the first Australians.
Mm-hmm. And the other side would still have Parliament House on it, as it currently sort of has. But before we get into the absolute shit show that's been the opposition response to this, can I just say that we must then take this moment to rest in peace, being able to fold our $5 notes so the Queen's neck looks like a whale giving a sad blowjob.
Is that true? Is that what it looks like?
Just a moment of silence. Just the great joke of our time. I wish I had a $5 note on me to show it to you, George. Were you not aware of this? Are you seriously not aware of this, George?
No, I'm not. Is there something you can say?
The Queen's neck with the necklace of pearls that she has, if you fold it in a certain way, it looks like a whale sucking someone off. And it's great.
Free for the pudding. I want to go to Reddit.
It's hilarious.
Okay, I googled Queen's neck whale blowjob, and I've got the Reddit. I've actually found it.
There it is. Right? Amazing. So it is the end of an era if that is no longer on our $5 note. That has just been a staple of the Australian $5 note for my entire life, as far as I'm aware. Like when they updated the $5 note to, used to be like the whole purpley, pinky sort of look. Now there's that transparent bit in the middle and all that sort of stuff. When they updated those, I was worried that they were going to update the Queen picture because of the memes, and they didn't, because it's an Australian institution.
Amazing. Okay, so it looks like to explain it
that way your entire life. It's only been there since 1992.
Oh my god, that's incredible.
Okay, as long as I was able to perceive money, Adam, I was 3 in 1992.
I've never noticed.
That's important,
Can I just describe? Let me describe the dick. So essentially, if you fold it in half over Queen Elizabeth's face, so you don't see the top of her head, right? It's just like chin down.
A bit of chin.
It's a bit of chin, and then the neck. So the chin kind of looks like the balls, and then the neck looks like the shaft. And it's going into her pearl necklace and her dress. And I guess the pearls,
the teeth of the whale,
kind of make it look like the teeth of a whale, kind of like chomping down on the dick.
And there's a fold in
Why do you know
dress
this?
that is like a sad, like closed eye expression on the whale.
Just whale's not enjoying it.
Or they're really getting into it. It could be a moaning closed eye. But no, George, how did I find out about this? I don't know. I was a teenage boy once, and someone folded it and showed me, and I was like, "That's fucking funny." And but it wasn't unique to my upbringing because so many people have seen it. I cannot believe you didn't know that until I brought this up now.
It's the pearls that it just makes it look like it's teeth.
Yeah, it looks like a mouth. It just makes it look like a mouth, and then there we go. But it looks like, a humpback whale just going to town on someone's penis.
My only response to that is every day we stray further from God's light.
My response is Moby Dick.
Great.
Call me Ishmael.
No.
Because
no.
Call me Ishmael.
I hate it.
Fold a $5 note.
I hate all of
this. So rest in peace, the greatest art meme of our currency, because the Queen's no longer going to be on it. But they're going to replace it with something that's more representative of First Nations people. I hope they canvass that properly and ethically, and people are actually happy about what's going to be put on there. Don't be too tokenistic about it. But, I have no idea how you do that. But, power to them. You know who doesn't think power to them and who isn't happy about this at all?
Jan Fran.
Jan Fran? Oh, I know someone who knows Jan Fran. They could probably ask her how she feels about it. But I'm assuming Jan Fran would be on board from the brief interaction I've had with her.
Jan Fran, the lefty comedian, would be very on board with the First Nations person being on the $5 note. I'm just extrapolating. I don't think I'm doing any defamation work there. I think I'm pretty confident on that.
No, Tom, I don't know. Who would be the person that's not happy
who's not into it? I didn't read the rundown.
Peter Dutton.
You know what? If he is a lefty comedian pretending to be a right-wing shitbird, he's doing a great character. He's really nailed it. It's like an Andy Kaufman-esque deep cover, like comedic representation of a right-wing moron.
Like, he went further than Stephen Colbert with the Stephen Colbert character. Like, you've committed to it too much, where it's not clear that it's a gag, and you're actually now just creating more problems.
You've just become Andrew Bolt.
Yeah, pretty much. Anyway, Peter Dutton, he's not happy about the fact that the monarch
Peter's not happy.
Represented on a $5 note. I don't know about you guys, but if Peter Dutton's not happy about something, that generally intimates to me that it's a good thing to do.
That's how you know it's good.
Yeah. If Peter Dutton's not happy, an angel
very
gets
level-headed with his response, though. I'm sure, he's. Correct me if I'm wrong. It's all been very nice, sort of.
The man is a picture of serenity and calm and decorum. Yeah, really respectful dialogue.
Yep, absolutely calm in saying that it's an attack on society, Adam. Not putting the monarch on the money is an attack. It's an attack on our society.
There is no question about this, that it's directed by the government. I think it is another attack on our systems, our society, and institutions.
Right.
Not our institutions.
The note
that's
only
only
had the Queen's head on it since 1992 and must have been something else before that. If we change it now,
it's an attack on the way of modern Australian life.
Adam, only been on there since 1992. Well, that makes it 2 years older than Australia Day. So, like, that means
it's basically sacrosanct then, isn't
and
it?
we can't change it. Can't change it at all.
No.
Yeah. So, yeah. Shut up, Peter. I just want to say, just shut the fuck up.
But it's also
shut the fuck up. Stop talking about the $5 note. Maybe attend a meeting about the voice to Parliament you want more details on instead of going to a pedophile's funeral. But that's just me. That's just how I feel about it.
He was at George Pell's funeral, you were saying.
He was indeed. And that was a real who's who
God,
of who's a cunt in Australia.
a real who's who of shitheads.
Just like, who attended George Pell's funeral? Every fuck knuckle attended George Pell's funeral.
Close the doors, we've got them all in one place.
Alan Jones, John Howard, Peter Dutton,
and that fun speech where Tony Abbott said George Pell was the greatest man he'd ever known, which just feels like you're gilding the lily a little bit there, Tony. I don't know. The greatest man you've ever known. I mean, really,
he's always had a way with words. So
he's always had a way with filleting George Pell.
Flair with language.
Mm-hmm. I think in the words of comedian Dan Illich, Tony Abbott needs to meet more men. If he's the greatest man he's ever known, he needs to meet more.
Maybe he's just got a really small sample size.
It's just like
he's the greatest man I've ever met. Is he the only man you've ever met, Tony? Yes, he is. I'm sad to say
he is.
Malcolm Turnbull.
He showed me how to eat onions.
My mate Bob, John Howard,
dickheads.
and George Pell. That's it.
That's all you need to have met. Ever. Mm-hmm. So fucking hilarious. All the dickheads who turned out for that. But yeah, Peter, shut the fuck up about these things and maybe attend a meeting that's relevant to the kind of culture war bullshit rather than, just being an absolute dick. Anywho. But you know what? It'd be great if maybe the new design could also be folded to look like a sad whale giving a blowjob. That would also be wonderful on the $5 note. If that can be done, I'm willing to let it go, but yeah, icon.
Peter
icon,
man.
Not an icon.
It's so funny saying it's like this is an attack on society, whilst we're literally in the middle of an inquiry into Robodebt, which was a literal attack on Australian citizens. It's like the absolute like cognitive dissonance, like the fucking cognitive gymnastics that I hope he stretched before. I hope he limbered up before doing those cognitive gymnastics, because I really think he could have pulled a cranial muscle if he wasn't careful there, because that is some impressive cognitive gymnastics that you need to go to there.
They're just trying to get some cut through, George. They just need some cut through, something that'll play well in the media, and just sort of start to take the focus away from the Labor Party.
I just hate this.
I should be a liberal strategist. I'm really good at this.
You really should, Adam.
Well, you certainly cosplay as one.
Fuck you. I like my
with your vest and your polo shirt. I think we could send you in there as a sleeper agent and just be like, Dos Vidania, Agent Darin, you have been activated.
Just be like, welcome to this young liberals meeting. Does anyone know anything about any launch codes? Peter Dutton had some shitty opinions. The Queen's neck being a whale blowjob is an icon taken from us far too soon. Speaking of icons taken from us far too soon, the provocative balloon that was seen flying over the United States in the past 48 hours. I just love this story for how much the word balloon had to be used in some really serious sentences. Like, just this article that drew my attention in the ABC was, what we know about the provocative balloon spotted over the sky above the US. Question 1, how big is the balloon? A US defense official did not specify the size of the balloon at the time, but said it was large enough that commercial pilots could see it, which is a weird metric. Then question 2, what is the balloon carrying? And they said it featured a technology bay was the initial thing, which what the fuck does that even mean? And then is the balloon's presence designed to send a message? I don't know, just all these sentences that just have a silly word like balloon in them is very funny. And to hear representatives from the Pentagon fucking talking about the, like, where's the balloon now? What's the balloon's trajectory?
1099er, we've lost location of the balloon.
Just absolutely
Sally's birthday is going to be ruined.
But yeah, so then the story developed that they believed that the balloon belonged to the People's Republic of China and that it was a spy balloon because it was flying over Montana and there's nuclear missile silos in Montana. So, they're spying on our nuke spots. And
apparently there was one over Canada as well. And from what I understand, the balloons
Montana's
are so...
fairly north, right? It's sort of a bit of could easily travel around there, yeah.
But yeah, the idea, the reason that they didn't shoot it down earlier is they said that there was, because it was so large, it would create a debris field large enough to actually put people beneath it at risk if it was shot down over a populated area. And because it's sort of in the air quite high up and it's traveling, based on
terminal velocity
at speed. You could really hurt someone if it goes down. So that's what they did. They waited until it was over the Atlantic Ocean.
And then they shot it down.
And
the balloon is no more.
And I have to say, the video clips of the Americans yee-hawing at the Chinese balloon getting shot out of the air is just the most American thing that you'll see on the internet this week. It's just like, that's my Air Force right there. It's like, woo! It's like, I just imagine them having a cookout, looking at the balloon, getting shot. Yeah!
Shot down by a plane? Does the
it was shot by a jet. Missile.
Does the pilot now get an air-to-air kill on his record?
Is that a confirmed kill? Yeah.
Is that a confirmed kill? Is that what they put it down as?
It's
I shot down
Tom Cruise shot down some MiGs.
I shot down a balloon.
Yeah. I just imagine the Tom Cruise's character from Top Gun being like, I shot down a couple MiGs in an F-14 and I got a couple of confirmed kills in undisclosed location, but probably Iran in the latest movie. Definitely had a couple of confirmed kills there. What about you, soldier? What did you kill? I fucking shot the shit out of a balloon, Tom Cruise. I'm the best of the best.
I got a balloon that was this big.
It was so big.
It's interesting because it's the same sort of thing as a satellite in some ways, because what it's in theory what it probably would have been doing would have been some sort of signals intelligence gathering, listening that sort of floats over slowly. And
it's just fucking funny, I think. Yeah. The giant, the giant balloon of oh wow, there's a balloon, and the memes have been great. But they shot down the balloon saying this was a Chinese spy balloon. It had some sort of surveillance technology on it or whatever, and we shot it down. And China's been we think you're overreacting.
Okay, everyone just chill. I mean, it was us, but don't be such a prima donna about it.
But you're overreacting, which I feel is it's fucking ridiculous, because this is when the missus walked in on Shaggy and he was balls deep on the counter, and instead of saying it wasn't me, said you're overreacting. Yes, I'm fucking the neighbor, but you're overreacting.
But you got me on the counter.
Yeah.
So what they said was that it was meant to be used for civilian in nature and was meant to be used for meteorological and other scientific research.
Meteorological. They just want to know what the weather's like in Montana over the silos.
Love it. Just some recreational spying.
How far?
They didn't mean to send it there, but the prevailing winds blew it off course.
You know how it is.
Balloons, you just can't control them, guys.
It's can't control these balloons. That Indian kite festival. You send up a kite and then all of a sudden you've got a couple of 3-year-olds trapped in your razor wire. It's like that, but with American nuclear silos.
And if it wasn't meant to go there, where was it meant to go?
Where was it supposed to go?
Were you aiming for fucking, I don't know, France, and you just sledged it?
No, I think it's one of those things where it's they made it so big that they knew that the Americans wouldn't shoot it down because it would cause damage. They're we know that you're going to know that we did this, but what are you going to do? Fucking start World War III over it? Fucking come at me, bro. It's
which I think you brought up before the show, George. If the US sent a spy balloon over China and then China saw it,
freaking out.
We'd never hear the end of it.
Yeah, the Chinese Communist Party would explode. It would just immediately just incandescent with the rage of 1,000 suns. But yeah, apparently just shoot some shit over Montana. It's fine. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, no, perfect.
I love, though, that people like, Chinese surveillance technology. It's the fucking Chinese surveillance state. The Chinese are coming. Meanwhile, I'm bored of this. I'm going to go swipe TikTok on my phone for a few hours. That's all right. The Chinese can't access that information. That surveillance on me from the Chinese is completely fine. But not the weather balloon with a big camera strapped onto it. What will we do? Well, national security.
It's the whole anti-vax 5G. They're going to track us bullshit. It's like, and you're telling me that on your iPhone.
Yeah. Which they're tracking you on.
Yes. Put those two things together, you fucking morons. Anyway, rest in peace, balloon.
R.I.P. balloon.
Rest in peace, the Queen's neck. Rest in peace, hopefully, Alan Tudge's career.
Oh, I thought you
and
were
maybe not
George,
in peace.
Rest
in piss. No, yeah. Rest in piss, both ears.
On that note.
What?
No, George Pell and Alan Tudge's career.
Okay, right.
On that note. On that note, we have been, we are, and we always will be Unnatural Selection. Make sure you visit us at our salubrious home on the web, unnaturalshow.com. Make sure you follow us on all the bullshit social medias that have, do, or ever will exist at Unnatural Show. That's Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, and of course, motherfucking TikTok. Make sure you follow me on Twitter and Instagram at George Tsipos.
You can follow me on Twitter at Tom D. Heath.
You can follow me into my progression into becoming a liberal sleeper cell agent, where I'll be reporting facts from the inside.
It's about the numbers, Mason. Think about the numbers.
Numbers. What do they mean, Mason?
What do they mean, Mason?
That meme is very old.
As are we. It's good that my dog started barking now as we're about to close off the show. Thanks for listening, guys. Love your faces. We'll see you next week. Shut up.
Good Maggie.
She's such a good little girl.
Good little Maggie, little potato.